Well, it may seem like a cover-up.
The report concludes that Aaron Zupka has serious judgment issues, but that he shouldn't be terminated. Okay, so it appears to be a cover-up mostly for Jenny Berkeley, and then also for Aaron Zupka. But Aaron Zupka, I guess his behavior is so bad that you read the report and it still seems like he should have been fired a long time ago. It's Sunday, October 26th, and I'm standing in front of the Milford Schools administrative offices because I think there's something that's a bombshell of really cover-up more than anything else. And I gotta give credit to Tony Brothers for this. So Tony Brothers did some record requests. Remember, he was holding off on his interview until he got some record requests. Now he seems to have gone silent. So I'm putting out what happened with him and me in the park in full. And but one of the things that came back in the records request was this outside investigation by a place called Ennis Britton Consulting Group, where the final report was on July 7th. So I went to the Milford School Board twice. I had heard rumors that there was an outside investigator, but they claimed again and again and again that it was the police doing the investigation.
Well, it may seem like a cover-up, but the police are in charge of the investigation. And
so what are you guys doing to bring it to closure?
I'm going to tell you that we are working with the police and asking them to update us, and they're providing us with updates.
They didn't know anything about it. The investigation's in charge of the police, when clearly they knew they were doing an investigation and had hired an outside company or firm to do the investigation. Now, this investigation is very interesting. The first thing that caught my eyes is it claims in here, okay, we know that there were communications on April 24th of this year, 2025, that began what I call the second round of issues that came up. There had been a prior year issue, and then there's this current one. So this April 24th communications, well, ultimately this woman, Jeannie Berkeley, claims in here she went to the police on May 8th. Well, first off, that's 2 weeks after the allegations. Okay, so that's not reporting. And I don't think it's true. And I just called Courtney Walls to ask him because the only report I've seen from law enforcement is the one that Courtney Walls initiated. And I went and asked for reports relating to these events, and I never saw anything that she had contacted the police. Actually, looking at the report that Courtney Walls initiated, it looks like after the report was initiated, the police contacted Milford Schools, and then Jenny Berkeley asked for a meeting with the police. She didn't report shit. She reacted to a report that was filed by somebody else. Now, maybe I need to investigate that, but there was nothing in the record that's a police report. So when you go through this report, okay, there's a couple things I want to highlight. There's a person named Eric Weston who was I guess a volunteer coach, and Brian McCann, who was a parent and also a volunteer. And what essentially gets described as a very dysfunctional situation on the team, but also, especially Eric Weston, that he had concerns, but now they put issues on both Courtney Walls and Tony Brothers, by the way, but that reinforces that people were observing Tony Brothers doing things that appeared to be inappropriate in terms of how he was interacting with the female athlete. So, for example, Eric Western says, Western stated that he witnessed several behaviors by Coach Brothers that he believed were inappropriate or crossed professional boundaries. These included wiping athletes' cheeks during emotional moments, showing favoritism to certain wrestlers. And there's a couple things in here of other people corroborating this behavior of Tony Brothers towards female athletes that was disturbing to people, and his favoritism. So another thing is, after May 8th, a week later, Tony Brothers had resigned, and he was told to have no contact with the female athletes, but he had contact, and it appeared that Aaron Zupka, the athletic director, kind of gave tacit approval to it by saying, you can do it, if you do this, do it off-site, don't do it on a school property. And I guess technically, I don't know, he's not an employee anymore, but you would think that anybody associated with the school would only have one clear message: don't do it, don't interact, and not to give any advice that would imply that doing it off-site somehow would be thing that you could consider doing. One thing also clear from this report is that there were issues with this team before Courtney Walls, and the issues had gone on for some time. There was Jason Babinek, who had resigned for personal reasons, and apparently just a lot of drama all the time. So I would say this report is mostly cover-up for Berkeley. You know, nobody, what's so bizarre is not a single, other than the parent volunteer, no other parents seem to be interviewed in this report. None of the girls that were women that were on the team appear to have been interviewed as part of this report. Jason Babinek is not interviewed as part of this report. Courtney Walls, I guess, was asked to participate and talk to them briefly and then stop talking to them. And I just asked him about that, and I think his answer was he wasn't sure it was legit or who was doing it. Plus, it didn't seem like it was on the up and up. So the person, though, even in this report, even for what looks like a little bit of a cover-up, that really stands out as being shouldn't be there anymore is Aaron Zupka. So there's a whole part of this report about how Aaron Zupka, across 2 years of credible allegations, never reported them to the police and never did things to try to make sure that behaviors that were disturbing to people were controlled or not happening. So you've got failure to report, a failure to act on things that were disturbing to people, like Tony Brothers having private practices with underage girls. He seemed to tacitly endorse Tony Brothers having contact with the girls after he had resigned. And the report concludes that Aaron Zupka has serious judgment issues, but that he shouldn't be terminated. Okay? So it appears to be a cover-up mostly for Jenny Berkeley and then also for Aaron Zupka. But Aaron Zupka, I guess his behavior was so bad that you read the report and it still seems like he should have been fired a long time ago. And it's just stunning how much of this involves a failure to actually interview people that were like parents, like the girls. Like, it was very selective, like Jason Babinek, the former coach. It was very selective who was interviewed in this thing. And also the brazen lie by the school that they couldn't talk or do anything because the police were handling it.
Well, it may seem like a cover-up, but the police are in charge of the investigation. And
So what are you guys doing to bring it to
I'm going
closure?
to tell you that we are working with the police and asking them to update us, and they're providing us with updates.
When they had contracted somebody to do an investigation on behalf of the school. These people are just liars. They're just liars, and their ethical and moral compass is nowhere to be found. So what I've done is I've added this report to my compendium of all the records. So I'm going to put a link with this to the compendium of all the records, and I think this is the last thing in there currently, so it's a pretty high page number in there, but this whole report, which is 18 pages, is in that compendium.